All right, y'all, welcome to the Scott Horton Show. I'm the director of the Libertarian Institute, editorial director of antiwar.com, author of the book Fool's Errand, Time to End the War in Afghanistan, and the brand new Enough Already, Time to End the War on Terrorism. And I've recorded more than 5,500 interviews since 2003, almost all on foreign policy, and all available for you at scotthorton.org. You can sign up for the podcast feed there, and the full interview archive is also available at youtube.com/Scott Horton Show. All right, you guys, on the line, I've got the great Dan McKnight. He is the leader of BringOurTroopsHome.us and of the Defend the Guard movement, which is a gigantic and important thing, maybe the most important thing in the whole world going on right now, based out of defendtheguard.us. Welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Good, Scott. Thanks for having me back on. And thanks for that incredible intro. A lot to live up to.
Yeah, you're doing great. Listen, tell me all about how great you're doing. I want to hear. Wait, first of all, tell us, what's the Defend the Guard Act? And then tell us how great you're doing.
Yep, Defend the Guard Act, piece of state-based legislation because we can't trust the federal government. It tells the states if they pass the bill that they get for one brief moment in time to stop their National Guard from being deployed into federal service if the purpose is to go overseas and fight in combat that hasn't been declared by Congress. And preaching to the choir, there's no one listening to your show that doesn't know this. Congress hasn't done that since 1942. And so it gives the governor the authority to say, nope, not today, Satan. The National Guard from Tennessee gets to stay home until you have a proper authorization. And we've got the bill now in over 30 states this year. We're fighting key battles. We just won for the third year in a row in the Arizona Senate yesterday with the great Wendy Rogers. We've had great victories in the Virginia House of Delegates with a unanimous 99-0 vote. We've passed the Idaho Senate, the New Hampshire House, key battleground victories in Montana and South Dakota. We're growing. The movement is on fire. And I think we're at the point now where the war machine knows exactly who we are. And they've got us in their crosshairs instead of the poor people in Hamas or Eastern Europe or the Horn of Africa. They're looking at us now.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, what do you and your friends at BringOurTroopsHome.us know about war?
Well, funny you should ask. Bring Our Troops Home was founded by me, a veteran of the global war on terror, and our entire membership is extended to all veterans of the global war on terror. And on our mail list, when people sign up for to get information from us, we ask them if they're a veteran, and we're at over 90% of our membership, people that we communicate with daily that are veterans of the global war on terror. So when they sit down in front of their state legislators or their congressmen and they say this war is ridiculous, they've got skin in the game, and they're not able to just put their arm around them and thank the troops and excuse them out of their office. They have to listen because, well, God dang it, we know. We've been there.
Yeah. Well, what do you know about the Constitution?
Just a thing or two. You know, I swore my hand and raised my hand and swore an oath to the Constitution to protect it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I took that serious. I made that oath with the promise that I would pay with the value of my life. And so when you do that, you have a tendency to maybe read and study a little bit. And you know, I'm not so altruistic as not to say that the Constitution shouldn't be changed over time. We have a process for that. But I think that the parts that exist that have been enshrined should be followed completely. And Congress has the sole authority to declare war. And they've been too chicken to do it for over 80 years. And so we're using the best lever of power we have, the most powerful amendment in the Constitution, the 10th Amendment, and allowing the states to interpose and set up this roadblock, this check, this quality control system between their own militia, their own National Guard, and an overreaching federal government.
All right. Now, there's so many different questions here that I'd like to ask you about. We're going to get back to the progress you're making because it's so important. But so if I was the devil's advocate, I would say that this is some kind of subversive thing. And what do you do? And how could you think that you could make the states go so far as to obstruct the national government when they need to conduct our foreign policy and keep us all safe and things like that?
You know, if you look at our membership, we are not the post-Vietnam hate Ashbury, counterculture hippies from, the 70s. That's not us. Most of us maintain our military standards. We're still, military haircuts, reasonably fit. We still keep qualifications on our weapon systems, and we would be the first ones that would show up for an actual invasion or attack on our homeland. the threat or the argument that this is a subversive tactic to keep America as an isolationist state and not involved in necessary wars of defense is ridiculous, because this bill does nothing, not one thing, to stop any of the authorized purposes of the National Guard or the authority of the president at all. What it does is realign those authorities. The president does not have the authority to take the National Guard and go fight a war in Sudan. He doesn't have that authority. But there's a small little loophole in federal code. It's found in Title 10, and I can nerd out and tell anybody that really wants to know the details about it. But there's a loophole that allows the president to do that because Congress hasn't done their job. And this bill is just an attempt to close that loophole. And we believe firmly that if there's an issue so important, a threat so grave to the United States that we're willing to commit blood of our sons and daughters and treasure into some faraway land because it's so important to America, then Congress should declare it, and then the National Guard should go fight and win America's wars. That's their job, but it's also our job as the civilians in control of the military to ensure that they're not taken into undeclared, unauthorized purposes. It's a very delicate system of checks and balances.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important because it's not like you're asking Congress to just dot an I or cross a T. You're asking them, these state legislators, to take, and the governors, to take a very big step against American militarism. But your argument is that essentially the government itself now, the national government, is outside of the law. And you're asking these state governors, state governments, to close the loophole in the law that's allowed them to get away this far. And you're using the constitutional system to do it. And so it's certainly an interesting take, but it's something that is hard for them to balance, I guess, the idea in their mind, because you are asking them to do something that is pretty severe, even if that only means just enforcing the law, right?
Absolutely. And, it's important to remember, and this, I spend most of my time with state legislators explaining this. The states created the federal government. It's not the other way around. We're not beholden to them. When they come into our states and try and bribe us or use coercion to force us to do something that's their will, that is not in alignment with the Constitution or federal law, the states don't have the right to interpose. They have the duty. If you have an unruly child, it is your job to get them back in line, not society's. And so the state governments have way more power than they know, but most of them are part-time legislators that are being led around by the nose by the executive branch in their own state, who is being led around by the threat of federal dollars. And at some point, America's just got to stand up and stop being okay with being bribed with our own damn tax money. We've paid that money. The goods and services that we're entitled to is defense of a nation and a guarantee of a Republican form of government, both of them. And taking our sons and daughters to go fight in the cocoa wars in the Congo doesn't seem to align with either one of those, a Republican form of government or a national defense. And so we want the states to just flex. And the only way we're going to get this big swampy mess under control, the blob, is for the states to strip away one bit of their power, one bit of their ability to violate the law at will, and take it away and enforce standards. And but again, like we say, if there's a war that needs to be fought, the National Guard should be the force that goes and does it. The founding fathers really deliberated over this issue more than anything else, was the ability to change the state of our nation from one of peace to one of war. They didn't want the executive and the federal government to have that authority. They didn't really want Congress to have that authority, but that's where they settled. They wanted that authority to be in the states with the people because they spread the gunpowder around, and they only authorized a militia. They didn't even authorize a standing army. And so we're just trying to get back into alignment. We're not trying to abolish the standing army. We're not trying to abolish the president's ability to respond to threats that he deems are important. He has the national military, the federal military, to do that. So if he wants to go bomb Soleimani, whether that's legal or not my argument today. My argument is he shouldn't be doing it with the men and women from Montana. He should be using the people at his disposal, the federal military. And we'll fight that war that fight in the courts after we finish fighting this one. We've got to realign principles. We've got to take away half of his fighting force and put it back where it belongs, in the power of the people.
Yeah. It's funny because it doesn't seem like it's too much to ask. If the same people are asking, in essence, by authorizing the president to decide as Congresses want to do, or just ignoring it and letting the president do whatever he wants, it's still their authority, the Congress's. And so in essence, the buck stops with them either way, even if they pass it. And so they're the ones asking people to not just kill people, but also risk being killed in horrible ways to do these things. Doesn't seem like too much to ask for them to just obey the Constitution and vote for it. They're not putting themselves at risk at all in that sense, other than for their upcoming reelection campaign.
Yeah. And, the great Ron Paul in Congress in 2002, when we were being lied into the Iraq war, he had the stones to go to the floor of the Congress and say, hey, if we're going to go to war with Iraq, here is a declaration of war resolution. I will present it. My name will be on it. I will be the first to vote against it, but this is what we need to do. And they laughed him out of the room. They laughed him out of the room because not another member of that 435 person body wanted to go back to their districts and explain why they voted to send their sons and daughters into a war that everybody knew, anybody with a brain knew was a lie. And so they punted. They told the president, sir, you go ahead and decide. You make that decision and we'll fund it. We'll give you a blank check and we'll allow you to prosecute that war anywhere you want for any length of time, anywhere in the world for any reason that you deem necessary. And we'll just be here like a cuck and write the check. And that's what Congress has turned into. They're just an innocent bystander. And I use innocent loosely, just allowing their authority that we've given to them to be eroded over time. We gave them very, very clearly defined powers from the people, very clear things that the president can do and things that the Congress can do. And those seem to be the things that they just don't do. And there's only one way to get a realignment there, Scott. There's two ways, but one will get us booted off the radio, and it involves pitchforks and torches. But the other way is to use our lever of power. Our lever of power is with our state representatives. I see them when I go to the grocery store, when we go to church, when you drop your kids off at school. They're our neighbors. They represent 7,000 to 15,000 people. And so our lever of influence with them is infinitely more powerful than it is with some congressman that represents 50,000 or 500,000, I think it is now, 500,000. And so we lift where we stand. We fight from the best ground, the best advantage we have. And that's why I don't fight the swamps in DC. I don't have any leverage. I don't have the high ground there.
Yeah. I think it's such a wise strategy. And hey, that's why it's federalism. It's supposed to be this
Amen.
way. It's exactly how politics is supposed to work. And the fact that you guys are invoking the 10th Amendment and the framers and their intent and your own oaths is, I think, the bonus. Seeing all these bills being introduced by Republicans across the country is a really important, milestone in American history. Really, it's undeniable. It's a huge shift. Oh, and by the way, I was going to say, man, I wish I still had that video. And I looked on C-SPAN before. Maybe someone can find that. It's from would have been October of 2002 when they're voting on the resolution for Iraq War II. And just as you say so correctly there, maybe you have the video. It's on the Foreign Affairs Committee when Ron Paul introduced the declaration of war and then gave a short speech explaining why he was going to vote against it, but why he was challenging the rest of them to vote for it since they love war so much. And the chairman of the committee, Henry Hyde, told Dr. Paul, well, that part of the Constitution is an anachronism. We don't go by that anymore, he said. And
Scott, we had that exact same thing happen in a committee hearing in, let me think for a second, it might have been South Dakota this year, where a general, it was Arizona, a general, the adjutant general of the Arizona National Guard, when asked about what authority we have to be fighting in Syria right now, he said, you all are waiting for Congress to declare war. That ain't going to happen anymore. And he just passed it off as if that is justification for everything else that we do after that. And in Montana on the House.
I mean, talk about, it's not even circular reasoning, it's square reasoning or something. Like the guy is just, that's why we're here, dude. We're trying to force them to take that responsibility. Welcome to the conversation, Lieutenant General.
Exactly. If you could just have 1 second to respond in real time to their statements, I would have said just that. I'm like, and that's why we're here, sir. And the arguments go downhill from there, from the opponents of the bill. On the floor of the Montana House yesterday, somebody had the audacity to stand up and say, if we pass this bill, it will create the next Holocaust. Scott, you can't make it up.
Really?
It's almost like he couldn't bundle enough things together in one sentence. I'm surprised he didn't say, 9/11, Holocaust, Hamas, Israel, and just
Crack
mush it all
epidemic.
together into one
Yeah.
sentence, and everybody stand up and cheers and waves their Ukrainian flag. I mean, that's what he was trying to do, is the biggest dog whistle.
It was
And that's what
amazing.
we're seeing all over the country, is the arguments that they used to come with were once upon a time pretty solid. They argued money. Oh, we're going to lose federal funds. But once we've disproved all that bull crap, and we've reminded them that they didn't swear an oath to federal subsidies, now they're starting to come back with the emotional stuff. We're in Syria to protect Israel. I've heard that so many times this last week, I don't even know where to start. They don't talk about the fact that we're in Syria with American boys firing American bullets at American dollars. They don't talk about that kind of reasoning, that we're fighting on every side of the war, or that we're supporting Al Qaeda. They want to talk about, whatever dog whistle of the day.
Hey guys, I've had a lot of great webmasters over the years, but the team at expanddesigns.com have by far been the most competent and reliable. Harley Abbott and his team have made great sites for the show and the Institute, and they keep them running well, suggesting and making improvements all along. Make a deal with expanddesigns.com for your new business or news site. They will take care of you. Use the promo code SCOTT and save $500. That's expanddesigns.com. Man, I wish I was in school so I could drop out and sign up for Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom instead. Tom has done such a great job on putting together a classical curriculum for everyone from junior high schoolers on up through the postgraduate level. And it's all very reasonably priced. Just make sure you click through from the link in the right margin at scotthorton.org. Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom. Real history, real economics, real education.
Scott Horton coffee. It's a thing. It's really great stuff, too. The Scott Horton Show Supreme Breakfast Blend from Moondoe's Artisan Coffees at moondosartisancoffees.com. I drink a lot of coffee, and I drink a lot of Folgers and things over the years, but I'm never going back now. Moondoe's is so good, and they have great wholesale deals for all you restaurateurs and Quickie Mart managers out there as well. They're now doing online commercial sales to coffee houses, coffee trailers, restaurants, and bakeries. So help support this show. Drink anti-war coffee. Click the link in the margin at scotthorton.org or just go to scotthorton.org/coffee. Seriously, buy some. And thanks. Yeah, well, so I guess a two-part question then. First of all, tell us about your interview with the new Secretary of Defense and what he had to say about this, and or elaborate on what he has had to say about this since being sworn in, or whether you're still in contact with him, and whether these military officers are out of line when they contradict you and your guys at these state committee and other hearings that you guys are doing in the state houses and senates of America here. As I saw them do, I showed up at a couple of these in South Dakota and I think Kansas a few weeks ago, and I saw these guys myself out there. It seemed to me like quite possibly they're insubordinate. So if you could please elaborate about that, and then also just spend the rest of the 7 minutes we got here, if you could, telling us about the progress that you're making in the various states. I know you had a big victory just yesterday, was it, or the day before in Arizona?
Arizona yesterday, yeah. So on a Pete Hegseth angle, last January, while he was a news personality on Fox and Friends, I've been reminded of this by the generals over and over. Yes, I get it. He was a news personality. He talked about Defend the Guard after the New Hampshire House passed it. And he says, I love this idea. And he went into pretty at-length details explaining why, that it's constitutional, the National Guard is being used inappropriately, and a very full-throated endorsement of Defend the Guard. That's the last statement on record. But in December, after he'd been nominated, I met with him in West Palm at a private dinner meeting and had a chance to talk to him again and asked him about his support for Defend the Guard again. And he reiterated, I love that bill. What can I do to help? And at the time, Pete was in danger of not being confirmed. And so we said, hey, let's circle back. Let's get you, there was my Jen Psaki reference, circle back. Let's get you confirmed. And then we'll work on a public statement. And I'm shooting myself in the foot because what has happened since that time is he is now the Secretary of Defense, and the layers of protection between him and me are infinitely greater. And so we're working every channel we can. Every time we start to make progress, we get stonewalled by something. He's out firing generals. He's down on the border. He's doing this. He's doing that. So we're working on it. We're going to get it. It's just a matter of time. But what happened is some of our activists started using that as an anchor for their argument. hey, the Secretary of Defense supports this. And like Diego Rivera, our field director, says, that's like giving a cookie to a mouse. You give them one, they want more. Now that Pete has endorsed it and has had no additional anything said on the record from the last statement, which means that that last statement is the record, now they want a written letter to them personally on his letterhead, or they want, you know, an F-16 jet to fly overhead and leave contrails that say, yes, I support Defend the Guard. They want some grand display instead of using logic that the last thing he said is the most current thing on record. So we love that we have his endorsement. We love that we have his support, but we are not using that as the foundation for our argument because it just creates more want, more demands from the deep state, from the swamp. So yes, we love that Pete's there. We love that Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, RFK Jr., Joe Kent, all these high-level administration folks have endorsed Defend the Guard. But the most important endorsement of Defend the Guard is the members of the global war on terror, the veterans that fought, that want this bill, and the founding fathers who wrote the Constitution. So those are the endorsements I'm hanging my hat on. I know that was kind of a cheesy response, but
no, that's not at all a cheesy response. That's a very good one and an important one. And I think you and Diego's reasoning there is perfectly right, because he could change his mind about that, and that wouldn't make you guys wrong one bit, and we wouldn't want anyone to misunderstand that.
Exactly. And so then the progress, you already mentioned some of the wins we've had, and we can talk about those if you like. But Scott, I want to talk about something with you if you don't mind. Do you mind if we talk about what the lever, the big sledgehammer you've given me with Provoked?
Yeah, I mean, say what you want. Wait, first, list me some states and what's going on, because I really I know there are a ton of anti-war vets in the audience of this show who probably are looking for something anti-war to do and someone to join up with in that Ron Paulian spirit, somebody that they can believe in, somebody like you. So what a great parade for them to get at the front of or at the tail end of and help support here. So how do they do that?
Yep. If you go to defendtheguard.us, that's defendtheguard, all one word, .us, and click on your state on the map that pops up. Well, first thing we're going to ask you to do is, tongue in cheek, enlist in our movement. There's a little banner we ask you to sign up and give us your email address and your name and what state you're from. When you do that, you become one of our army. But then click on your state and you can see what's happening in your state. For instance, in Nebraska right now, we have one of the first Democratic sponsors of the bill in the country this year. Her name is Megan Hunt, very progressive lefty that believes with us the same on this issue. And we've been apolitical from the start. We want Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Green Party, everybody to come because this is an issue we all should agree on. And so she has a hearing for the first time in Nebraska this Wednesday, the 12th. And it's going to be an informational hearing that we do not have the gunpowder to fight the battle in Nebraska. So she's going in there bold in front of the committee to educate the committee, get the groundwork laid, and build for next year. What we're trying to build now in Nebraska is an army of people on the ground. So if you live in Nebraska, click the state and there's a way for you to contact us. Every other state, you can click on it and see who's sponsoring your bill. You can give them support. But most importantly, if you go to defendtheguard.us/phone bank, and you give us 10 minutes a week during legislative session, you will see in real time how your voice can flip votes in real time. We change votes daily using just a little bit of veteran power and will on phone banks. And we went from we were down 8 votes on a committee, and we started phone banking a week before and getting people to call. And by the time the committee hearing was on, we'd already whipped the committee and we had a 2-vote advantage and we won in committee. We are applying grassroots pressure with the voice of veterans, telling state representatives relentlessly that we don't want them to endorse the bill, that we demand it and we expect them to do their jobs. And when they don't, we practice what we preach. For instance, in Tennessee, one of our co-sponsors, Representative Rick Eldridge, sponsored our bill for 2 years, took advantage of all the benefits of being a sponsor of our bill, veteran support, things like that. And then in committee, made the motion to kill the bill and send it to a summer study. That is a death sentence for a bill, our own co-sponsor. So what we did, we've already recruited his replacement. This happened less than a week ago. We've already recruited his replacement. We have already started training the activists that are going to be helping on his campaign. And we are educating. That's my goal of my mission, is to educate his district on what he did. What a cowardly move he made, taking advantage of the benefit and the support of veterans and then turning his back on them. So he knows that he has the support of the veterans, but the veterans don't know the same. And so we're going to educate everybody. He's gone. Rick Eldridge he's a dead man walking. He doesn't even know it, figuratively. And then other states, Texas, we were on the ballot in Texas and it passed with 83% support last March, outperforming even Donald Trump. The number of people that voted against it in Texas was almost identical to the number of people that voted for Nikki Haley, coincidentally enough. We've got a battle in Montana where it went to the floor, back to committee, back to the floor, back to committee. And in real time, we were able to flip one single vote and get it passed out of committee where before it had died. We just had a great hearing in Oregon. We've got one in Idaho coming up. Arizona just passed the Senate. So what we're getting at is over 30 states have opportunities to fight. And next year, we're going to try and be in all 50. But to do that, we need an army. We need volunteers. And I need you to sign up at bringourtroopshome.us and click on Join Us and join the Remnant. The Remnant is our group of supporters that chip in 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks a month and help us fight this fight, because we're not a paid army. We don't have paid lobbyists. I do this all for free. It's my own volunteer hobby. I've got 2 paid staff members that organize ground troops and one writes for us. The great libertarian writer Hunter Dorenzis is our communications director, and the great libertarian activist Diego Rivera is our ground operations. And that's what I would ask people to do. 2 things: find in your state where you can join the fight, and then join the movement and chip in a couple bucks.
Okay, now you can tell me how useful my book is for a minute.
All right, what a great book! I mean, I'm sure you've already had the praise. You see where you're at on the charts, but I took an entire backpack full of your copies of Provoked to the Capitol, to the Senate office buildings for the inauguration. And I wrote a letter from me, the chairman of veterans organization, Bring Our Troops Home, asking, demanding, and giving specific reasons why they should read the book, specifically the sections on Ukraine war dating back to 2014 and even earlier, and understanding their history before they commit billions more dollars and possibly American lives to that mess over there. And I went into every single senator that sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, thinking that would be where the best lever of power was. And went in offices like Mike Lee and Jim Risch and Rand Paul, and delivered, of course, to warm receptions by most of the good people, mild to lukewarm receptions from people that are kind of squishes, outright hostile reactions from offices like your own Senator Jim Cornyn. And then I went to the Democrats too, and received almost no attention whatsoever. Just put it on the desk and get out of here. That was the reaction for most of them. But every office I went into, I told them this. I go, this book is comprehensive history on Ukraine, dating back through Republican and Democratic presidents, administrations. Your senator is specifically referenced in this book, even if they weren't. And I would explain that their actions are specifically referenced in this book. You might want to know what's in here. And then gave them the letter, gave them the book. All of them did the same thing. Can we take a picture? Yeah, of course you can take a picture. And so I took pictures with them, the ones that were there, and then moved on. And then I didn't make it into all of offices because Washington, D.C. was shut down for the inauguration. So the remaining members that I didn't get to, I went down to the UPS store and overnighted copies of the book with the letter in them. And then each one of them has gotten a follow-up letter from me asking if they've read the book and report back and let me know what's happening with their little history lesson.
Wow.
Guess how many responses I've got?
I'm sure 100, right?
Hundreds of them, Scott. Yes, minus hundreds.
Well,
yes.
it's the Senate for a solid 100 guys, I'm sure.
Yep.
No?
So anyway, after reading the book and just fully understanding for my own edification what we did to cause the war in Ukraine, I don't know how anybody can read the plain language in your book, clear, referenced, sourced, cited, and think, by God, we should be dumping billions more dollars in here, unless their argument is, we caused this, we should fix it. I would actually entertain and listen to that argument. But to keep the fight going, I'm not interested in even entertaining their discussion.
Yeah. Even on the former, I mean, that was part of the excuse for Iraq was, well, we helped support Saddam Hussein, so now we gotta... No, now you got to just stop. Just stop. But, well, listen, I mean, I can't tell you, first of all, how much I appreciate what you say, but especially what you do there. That's really great to hear that you're, not just giving them the book, but following up and all of that stuff. It's really good. And thanks to Hunter, too, for everything. Hunter's amazing.
I'm glad you're keeping him busy as well and giving him some extra stuff on the side, because he is a talent that if we don't use, we're going to lose. So keep that up.
Yeah, well, he's our editor, so he better not be going anywhere. We'd be doomed. Our ship would sink without him.
Right.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, I so appreciate what you guys are doing. it's so important in its own right, but of course it also just sets such a great example for how anti-war activism can be done and how respectable you can make it and have succeeded in making it. The whole MAGA movement is coming to where we were on foreign policy this whole time because we were right this whole time. So it only makes sense. So they're more and more. We have real non-interventionist sympathies on the right, and we need to build on them. And I can't think of a better way. So I appreciate all your efforts, and for everybody listening who's interested, by all means, please just go to bringourtroopshome.us and defendtheguard.us and sign up with the guys here and join this thing. Because, I don't know, man, I've been doing this a very long time. I always hear, yeah, but what can you really do? Hey, this is something that you can do for real that is truly making a difference and has, specific tasks like showing up to testify and support at your local Capitol building in your state where this stuff is going on. So please get in contact. It's the great Dan McKnight, Diego Rivera, Hunter Durensis, and the rest of the guys at bringourtroopshome.us. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
The Scott Horton Show, Anti-War Radio, can be heard on KPFK 90.7 FM in LA, APSradio.com, antiwar.com, scotthorton.org, and libertarianinstitute.org.